notebooks in their hand. They're coming in, they're very alert, and I think this is one of those testimonies where you have no choice but to pay attention and almost be flabbergasted, obviously, at some of what you're hearing, because it's not only just insight into somebody's sex life, but the details are disturbing at times, especially during that prosecution testimony when we saw some of the alleged abuse, or we saw pictures of her after a beating of some kind, according to her. But the jurors are definitely paying attention. I don't see anyone that's not keeping their focus on Cassie Ventura, and also I noticed them taking notes a lot of times.
And the children, as they were exiting court yesterday, two of the girls were seen crying. How emotional have they been in court?
Again, I cannot imagine if that was my father or somebody close to me up there and having to hear details of their sex life. Those are young women. They lost their mother, one of them, the twins. So no one can probably quite understand what it is that they're going through, but I think that's something that you think about on both sides, you know, to look at Alex Fine, which is Cassie Ventura's husband, and think about him having to listen to all that's being said about the type of woman that Cassie Ventura was versus the person that's expecting, you know, their third child together now. So whether it's Combs's family or Ventura's family that's there to support her, her brother and her husband, Alex Fine, I think it's difficult on both sides. I've seen him taking notes from the beginning. I see him put his glasses on. He gets very close to the screen when they're reading some of those text messages. So he's paying attention.
Now, Ventura confirmed that she and Combs had conversations about a swingers lifestyle, but that the freak-offs, they were very different.
Yeah, so she talked about this idea where I guess Combs wanted her to watch him have sex with another woman. She said that happened 2 or 3 times, but that he mentioned it frequently.
Kim Porter came up today in testimony. What was the significance there?
The defense said early on that this case would be about infidelity, love, and jealousy. And this is where they brought that up today when they brought up Kim Porter's name. The defense asked Cassie Ventura, are you jealous, or were you jealous of Kim Porter? And Ventura sort of contemplated, but did get to this moment where she said, knowing that Combs spent holidays with his family, which meant with Porter, did bother her. And she admitted that. They also pointed out that there was testimony where she talked about being insanely jealous overall as a girlfriend. So, yeah.
We're hearing the judge wants Cassie off the stand tomorrow. Will the prosecution and the defense get equal time?
Yeah, as long as there aren't any additional motions, I think that is the goal, to have her off the stand by tomorrow.
Why do you think that? What's the reasoning behind wanting her off the stand tomorrow?
In the very beginning, Rachel, they told us that she would likely be.
Several jurors visibly reacted, exchanging glances with each other. The moment was surreal. The room that had moments earlier been silent and controlled was now charged with tension so thick it was almost palpable. The judge, usually stoic, tapped his gavel once. Not to restore order, but as if to ground himself in the reality of what he, too, had just witnessed. Then the recording resumed. Prince's voice returned, calmer now, but no less damning. I told him this wasn't going to end well. Not for him, not for the people around him. I told him there's a reckoning coming. I just didn't know how close it was. There was a pause, a long one, in the recording. You could hear Prince breathing. Then he said something no one expected. If something happens to me, if I disappear, if I die suddenly, look at him. Look at Diddy. Gasps filled the courtroom. Even the court stenographer briefly stopped typing, visibly shaken. The judge leaned back in his chair. Eyes narrowed. The prosecution let the weight of that sentence hang in the air. For the first time, it wasn't just about abuse, or power, or manipulation. It was about fear. It was about survival. Diddy's head was now down. He wasn't whispering anymore. He wasn't reacting at all. One might have mistaken him for a statue, if not for the single tear that traced silently down his cheek. Then the prosecutor paused the recording again and addressed the judge. Your Honor, this concludes the excerpt we believe is most relevant to the case at hand, but we have the full recording, authenticated, time-stamped, and admissible, should the defense wish to review further. The defense.
First day of testimony in Sean Diddy Combs' federal crimes trial. After seating a jury of 8 men and 4 women, the prosecution delivered its opening statement, and they came out swinging.
I am a musician. I don't sample, you know. It's not Memorex. I go on stage and my microphone is on.
She said a lot yesterday that sets them up for the landing. They just haven't landed the plane. And I think that if anything, you walked away believing that this woman could have been taken advantage of.
It's only day 2, y'all.
But they also said people were leaving during, that people were snapping and sleeping. Was that
people
true as well?
felt like the prosecution was taking too long to get to gut punch. That's how people felt, because they spent so much time on their history, on why she didn't do this. They kept asking her a lot of the same questions about the they were taking, and but what I think that the prosecution was building is they were building character around it.
Kid Cudi, because she was dating Kid Cudi at one point, and you know there are all sorts of stories that Kid Cudi's car blew up, and it was Diddy that had one of his goons go out and blow it up, and they got into this and they talked about it. She never delivered the knockout blow and said, and Diddy told me that he did it. But they reference blowing up Kid Cudi's car, but
His team looked like they'd been hit by a freight train. One attorney was visibly sweating. Another furiously flipped through a binder, searching for any legal foothold. But there was no playbook for this, no precedent, no objection that could unhear the voice of a legend calling out from beyond the grave. The judge nodded slowly. Court will recess for 20 minutes. Counsel, meet me in chambers. The gavel struck again, a sound that rang out like thunder. As the courtroom emptied, murmurs turned into buzz, buzz into shouts. Outside, the press was already preparing breaking headlines. Inside, the jurors filed out silently, many of them still glancing back at Diddy, who had not moved. And Prince's final words echoed in everyone's ears. I know too much. And I'm tired of pretending I don't. Reporters sprinted to the nearest exits, some dialing their newsrooms mid-stride, others already live on social media. Prince names Diddy in secret recording flashed across news tickers within minutes. A legal analyst whispered to a colleague, "This isn't just a bombshell. This is nuclear." Inside the courthouse, behind thick wooden doors,
Became such a big deal back then is ever since my third album, I wasn't really taking large advances from the recording companies. I was recording the albums myself in my own studio. So the way I looked at it, I owned the work because I paid for it. And I did all the work. I created it, so I felt like it should belong to me. That said, the companies felt otherwise. And they would always hold this contract up and say, well, you signed it. And I say, well, I understand that. It's not like I want to leave. I just want to, talk about this thing and see if we can't make it more fair. Of course, they wouldn't change, because if they changed, they wouldn't really exist. And that's kind of the situation we're in right today. They're not going to exist much longer. But it's not like we're against them or anything like that. The idea is that we find better ways of working with one another. It shouldn't be a situation where they own the album or the work. We're talking about intellectual copyright. If they're going to be indeed a delivery service, then that's fine. But even FedEx doesn't say that they own the thing that they ship.
Cassie Ventura on the witness stand for a fourth day in the federal criminal trial against hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs. The defense continuing cross-examination this morning, confronting her with dozens of her own messages, many explicit, hoping to convince the jury she was an eager sexual partner who matched Combs's desires. I'm always ready to freak off, one message said.
Cassie was into the freak-offs herself and was like a willing participant and was into all the freaky stuff, and essentially that was the crux of what they were trying to do yesterday.
And do you think they proved that or not?
I mean, there's texts like that from 2009. I'm always ready to freak off. There was some other texts where she was referencing like hitting him up about the FOs, is what they were referring to him. To me, like, yes, this doesn't look good, but at the same time, I think the timeline is crucial here. And these are texts from 2009, man. That was when they were first getting in the relationship. She was young. Obviously, they were in the honeymoon stage, and she was stoked to like, oh my God, I'm with Diddy. I'm living this lavish lifestyle. Of course, she's going to be saying things that she knows will curry favor with him to keep it.
Diddy's legal team met with the judge in chambers. What was said in that meeting remains sealed, but what we know is this. When they emerged, the color had not returned to Diddy's face. His attorneys looked grim, defeated, like generals returning from a battlefield they didn't even understand. Back in the courtroom, the jury re-entered slowly, glancing at Diddy like he was no longer just the defendant in a criminal trial, but something darker, something dangerous. The room was quiet again, but it wasn't the same kind of quiet from earlier. This silence held fear, uncertainty, and history. The prosecutor stood. "Your Honor, we request the witness Cassie Ventura return to the stand for a brief follow-up." Cassie walked back in wearing the same muted expression she had all week, but this time, as she sat, she looked directly at Diddy. And he didn't look back. The prosecutor wasted no time. "Miss Ventura, you previously testified about certain parties in late 2015 and early 2016. You mentioned Prince?" Cassie nodded. "Yes. He was at the house in Miami, the one with the mirrored rooms upstairs." "And did Prince ever express concern to you, privately?" Cassie's eyes welled with tears. "Yes. He pulled me aside once, said, 'You don't have to live like this. You're not safe here.'" I remember thinking, he was the first person who ever said that out loud. The prosecutor nodded and turned toward the jury. "Nothing further." The defense declined to cross-examine. They had nothing, not after that tape. But the day wasn't over.
Diddy 2 or 3 times. He was always like quite quietly spoken, polite, charming. I mean, he obviously was a chameleon character from what we're now reading about him. But you worked with him. Was this all a facade? You know, could he turn on the charm and the respectful politeness when he wanted to, and actually be...
When the Jason Lee show aired, it first aired on the Revolt Network, so that was the extent of our relationship. Let's be clear, I wasn't close to him, I wasn't a friend of his, and anything we talked about was related to the show. But I told a story some time ago about when I was at his birthday party, and I was taking a picture in the foyer, and he walked in, and I said, "Hey, do you want to get in the picture?" And as he was walking over, he was saying something like, you know, "You better not ever..."
Did you hear anything about who found him, how he was found, or the 911 call or anything like that?
Yes.
Yeah?
And I can't talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here to get to the bottom of it, though, it sounds like.
We pretty much know what's going on, but, you know, all we want to do is just talk about the man, the musician.
What message do you have to Prince fans?
Just keep saying prayers for everyone, for the family.
So there was no sign of this. This is just...
You know, everyone gets sick once in a while. We don't know. We're going to...
The Diddy party I went to was at Prince's house. So you want to go to Prince's house to the Diddy party where Tyrese is performing and Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher are swinging on swings. That is what's happening on the other side of the wall. And so the one thing that makes this party different than a Jamie Foxx party or any other celebrity party that wrangles a bunch of young women or guys or whatever too, is that Diddy didn't let you bring your security in the party.
You were in a relationship with Prince. He even proposed to you. How did he do it?
It was during the Sign of the Times tour, and there are many songs that were like really emotional to me when we played, and Purple Rain was one of them. So playing that song and playing drums, I just love playing that song. And next thing I know, he's taking his solo, and as I open my eyes, he was turning at the same time that I opened my eyes, and he's taking his solo, and he turns to me, and he said, "Will you marry me?"
Because then, something completely unexpected happened. The FBI lead investigator, previously scheduled for next week, was called in early, and he brought photographic evidence pulled from digital metadata inside Prince's private archive, evidence the defense had tried, unsuccessfully, to block. A giant screen lit up, and there it was, a still image, grainy, time-stamped, but clear enough to send shivers through the entire courtroom. A party, late 2015. A woman, partially unconscious, slumped in the arms of 2 men. One of them was Diddy. The investigator explained, the image came from a hidden security system installed by Prince himself. The footage was encrypted. privately archived, and legally transferred to the government following his death under a sealed.
The Diddy's team tried to do was show how they had breaks, and she was with Michael B. Jordan and was with Kid Cudi for a minute. But during that time period, she was still having freak-offs with Diddy, and I think that was them trying to show, this wasn't a controlling thing. Here she was, hooking up with other people. She just was into the freak-offs.
I kind of buy that, to be honest.
So...
she is out of the freak-off scene. She is, when she's with Kid Cudi, or allegedly with Michael B. Jordan, she's kind of out of the freak-offs if she wants to be. So why do you keep going back?
Yeah.
I know it's kind of like a mental, she still loves Diddy. Diddy was jealous about her.
Oh, yeah, because that was another thing that the prosecutors were trying to do, is show that, that they had a very jealous relationship. She would get jealous when he's with Kid Cudi. Also, Kim Porter, Cassie would be jealous of Kim Porter.
Right.
Trying to show that, Cassie, you were in love with this guy. That's why you were jealous.
Right.
So, this was a real relationship.
It was just interesting to see Chris Brown's.
I mean, he's always coming up somewhere, dude.
He is.
Chris Brown.
All right. Final story of the week. Final story of the week. Justin Bieber is not a victim of Diddy. So this was one of those rumors or whatever that was flying around in the months leading up to the trial. And to be honest, there was quite a few rumors flying around, was there minors involved? Says if no other celebrity was part of freak-offs, why are they in hiding? Are they in hiding though?
I don't think they're in hiding. I just think other celebrities didn't want to insert themselves. No one wants to be tied to Diddy one way or the other.
Even if you're at a white party, just having a lot of fun, one of Diddy's white parties, you don't want to be linked in any way.
No, and that's why all those people, there's a few people I think that have come forward.
Agreement with the estate. This wasn't just hearsay anymore. This was surveillance. This was witnessing. The defense tried to object again, citing chain of custody. But the judge shut it down. "We're beyond procedural games now," he said. "This court is here to uncover the truth." You could hear someone whisper, "He's done." And it felt true. Even Diddy's supporters in the gallery, the few who'd shown up in silent solidarity, sat frozen. The man who once ruled music, who was untouchable for decades, now looked like a relic of a different era, a fallen emperor, surrounded not by adoring fans, but by evidence, by ghosts. One final blow came just before adjournment. The prosecution handed the judge a sealed document. It was a subpoena request for 2 additional celebrity witnesses, individuals who had previously denied ever attending Diddy's parties, but whom Prince had named on the recording, and who were clearly visible in the now authenticated footage. The judge signed it, and with that, court was adjourned for the day. As the room emptied, someone muttered under their breath, "Day 4 is going to be biblical." The silence before the storm. The courthouse was surrounded before sunrise. Helicopters hovered overhead. Satellite vans lined the block. Reporters camped on the steps, whispering predictions like gamblers at a roulette table. Something seismic was coming. Everyone knew it. By 8 a.m., an anonymous leak had already spread like wildfire. 2 of Hollywood's most beloved A-listers, names not yet public, had been subpoenaed. Social media erupted. Conspiracy theories exploded across platforms. Fans speculated wildly. Screenshots of Prince's past party guests dissected like evidence from a crime scene. Inside the courtroom, the air was thick, like a thunderstorm was minutes away from breaking. Diddy entered last. This time, he didn't smile. He didn't wave. He didn't look up. Dressed in black, flanked by his attorneys like pallbearers, he shuffled to the defense table, a man already buried by a voice from the grave. The judge opened proceedings with a rare announcement. Today's witness list contains high-profile individuals. I expect no interruptions, no audible reactions, and full compliance with courtroom decorum. The first new witness, a former bodyguard, but not just any bodyguard. This was Prince's former head of private security. He took the stand in a crisp gray suit, his voice calm and measured. "I was employed by Mr. Nelson from 2012 until his death," he began, and I personally installed the encrypted surveillance system in his Miami property. The prosecutor stepped forward. Were you present during the December 2015 party? I was, he replied. Did Prince instruct you to monitor certain areas? Yes, especially the third floor, and the guest rooms. A low gasp moved through the gallery. The prosecutor turned toward the jury. Your Honor, with the court's permission, we would now like to introduce Exhibit 48, a second video file recovered from Prince's vault. The judge nodded. The lights dimmed. The footage began. A dim hallway, soft music playing. Then, the camera caught a bedroom door ajar. Inside, Diddy, 2 women, one clearly unconscious. A third man, blurred for legal reasons, leaning against the doorway, laughing. The room fell ice cold. The witness continued. Prince was disturbed by what he saw. He told me directly, this is the kind of evil that hides behind diamond watches and platinum records. Someone in the gallery quietly sobbed. Diddy didn't move. Then came the second bombshell. The prosecution called their next witness. And when she entered, the room exploded with whispers, Jennifer Lopez, gasps, murmurs. Even the judge blinked twice. She walked straight to the stand. No glam squad, no sunglasses, just jeans, a blazer, and a haunted expression. Once sworn in, the prosecutor approached carefully. Ms. Lopez, thank you for your courage. You were previously asked under oath whether you had ever attended one of Mr. Combs' private parties. At the time, you said no. Would you like to correct your